Hey, Senda.
Hey, Phil.
Do you like chit or chat?
I think I like chat.
Okay, well, I'll take chit then.
Okay.
And we'll chit chat.
Done.
Cue music. And welcome to another episode of Panda's Talking Games. I'm your host, Phil.
And I'm your other host, Senda.
I know you didn't know if I was going to go for it or not. I didn't either.
I didn't know if you were going to add something in. I kind of gave you a second.
I was going to do the chit chat thing, but we did it in the opening, and then I was like, nah, can't it?
And we did it last time.
Yeah. That's fine.
And potentially did the time before that, but I don't remember.
It's fine. It's fine. Welcome to Panda's Talk Games. This is another one of our Chit Chat episodes. What's a Chit Chat episode? Well, it's an episode it's an episode format that we're using to help get us by through this pandemic, followed by or in addition to these turbulent times. It is not our normal show format. So if you have recently just stumbled onto us and you're like, these two are fantastic, note that this is not how our show always goes. We are somewhat a bit more structured and a bit more edited. And if you...
Yeah, I was going to say, if you stumble into our show and you're like, this is terrible, they say and and they wander off topic all the time. I'm not editing these ones, and we normally do. So go back and listen to something that I've edited.
They're not scripted. They're not edited. If you want a taste of one of those, we highly recommend you just look in our back catalog for any one of the shows with a number. Numbered episodes are ones that have a higher quality, and that's why we're not numbering these, because while we enjoy recording for you and with you, I guess with you, you're listening, we're here. While we enjoy spending time with you, it's helping us in our own self-care to not have to do extra work right now.
Yes.
Okay. So our format for our Chit Chat episodes is that we always start by talking about something that's giving us life in gaming.
Let me just pause you for 1 second, because we said turbulent times at the beginning of this, so I'm just going to say this, and then we will move on from it. This is going to drop in a week. I have no idea what the landscape of the country is going to look like in a week. It's completely impossible for us to predict, but from where I am right now in our time-traveling capsule, I just want to say that here, both on this podcast and at Misdirected Mark, Black Lives Matter, keep fighting, no justice, no peace. Okay, let's move on.
Excellent. Thank you for saying that. I echo that sentiment as well.
Make sure that our position on this is entirely clear.
Correct. Okay. That is fair. That is fair. If you didn't know, now it's stated. That is exactly where we fall. So we start we do our Chit Chat episodes with a thing that's giving us life in gaming. And then we do a thing that's giving us life somewhere that is not gaming related, but also giving us life. And we actually have the same topic for the second half of the show, but we have different topics about what's giving us life in gaming this evening. Are you prepared to tell me what's giving you life in gaming?
Yeah, and it's going to sound kind of similar to some other things that gave me life in gaming previously, because at a certain point, the things that feed me the most spoons in games have some similarities to each other. I know that's a shock, because I have like a certain style and a certain thing that I like to get out of games, all of that stuff, right? So the thing that was fantastic for me this last week is that on not this last Thursday, but the Thursday before, since we didn't record last week, we played This Discord Has Ghosts in It again, and it was fantastic again, and dare I say even better, because we understood kind of where the rules were, the guidelines that they gave us, and where we could really dig into them and kind of make the game even more our own. We had taken a little bit of steps in that direction the first time, just by as we were walking into the game being like, hey, maybe we should do XYZ. namely in terms of like maybe the ghost should, go off and pick a house and, all be related to that location or whatever. This time we went off as ghosts and we didn't just plan the location, which we did plan the location. It was a lighthouse, which was super fun. We also were like, cool, how are we as ghosts? Like, what is our relationship to each other? Why are we all ghosts in this house? Right? And that ended up being really cool because we sort of twisted it a little bit. We weren't all ghosts. We were all ghosts except for the one person who was actually a demonic entity from another plane of existence who kept making deals with people that ended up meaning they couldn't pass on into like the beyond, right? So they were stuck, like bound by this agreement. And that was super cool because our investigators came in and we were all kind of channeling different mythological creatures. So we had kind of an earth Medusa type ghost, and then we had like a Selkie kind of ghost, and then I was like a siren kind of ghost. So I spent a lot of my time like singing at them, and like the ability to just toss audio into the Discord so that they would be listening to it was really clutch. It was fantastic. And also freesound.org is a really good resource if you end up playing this game and you need sounds. So we had that kind of set up, and then we had, this one person. And so they would walk into a room and he would start telling them things like he was being friendly to them, like he was all nice and helping them. And we're like these screaming, things skittering across and like very typical ghost story stuff, heads spinning around and mirrors breaking and that kind of thing. And then it evolved because we all kept yelling at him like, you made this deal. It wasn't fair. I just wanted to leave and you won't let me. I'm trapped here until the, terms are fulfilled and all of this stuff. Right. And so we were having like in-character fights in front of the investigators a bunch via text. And they're like watching this unfold and trying to figure out what's going on. It was super cool. And then we also broke the rules. I don't think it's clearly... It is clearly stated, but so we also broke the rules in terms of then one of the investigators ended up basically deciding that his character was hypnotized by this demon and making a deal with him and fulfilling the final element that he needed to be released into the world, which was fire. And so then he actually switched from the voice channel to text chat right at the end of the game when he turned into a ghost. So basically my story is like, this game is brilliant. The rule set is pretty loose and it is still developing. But what's amazing about it is that it is a brilliant framework over which you can lay a lot of different stories that have that similar kind of flavor, right?
I'm digging.
Does that?
Yeah.
It's so good. I should run you let me know when you're free.
Yeah.
We should set up a game. This game is great.
As usual, I'm full of abundance of time.
I know, never. That's why I'm saying I'll work around your schedule, but this game is really quite brilliant.
I'm deferring all commitments till July. I'm heavily buried with an upcoming project that I can't really commit anything else to until that project passes.
Yes.
But I dig it, and I like that. So I just, in talking about gaming topics out of your story, one of the things I really like is the playing of one shots multiple times.
Yeah, it's really interesting to play something, especially something that is really. There are a lot of one-shots that are very specific, right?
Sure.
Like, you can play Lady Blackbird multiple times, and you will come out with multiple stories from Lady Blackbird, but, like, it controls a lot more of the specifics of the story that you'll get, right? You're always going to have, like, some set of these characters, and it's always going to start in this place, and the plot direction is always kind of this, right? Like, it has a lot of that stuff locked down, for example. And the thing about this Discord Has Ghosts in it is it's a lot more of just, like, a framework and, like, basically you're going to do a haunted house, and here's mechanically how these bits and pieces are going to work. And then, like, from that, it doesn't give you a ton of guidance other than, like, as a ghost, you have to make these decisions. Who are you and why are you still here? And as an investigator, you have to make these decisions. Who are you? Why are you investigating this house? Right. But it leaves you a lot of space to do things like what we did, which was, this like weird demonic deal thing. And then our investigators, it was brilliant because they got together while we were discussing as ghosts, and they decided that they were part of like Dr. Somebody or Rather's like ghost infestation like cleaning service or something.
Sure.
I don't remember. But like this really like self-confident guy who like thinks that he can just solve all of these problems, and then we like, his car ended up in the ocean and they were miles away from the nearest town, and like so they had the actual doctor, they had the guy who was just along to film whatever the doctor said as part of like his TV show, and then they had the unpaid intern rookie, right? And it was the 80s, so they didn't have cell phones or anything. There you go. They just had walkie-talkies. It's great. So like they made a bunch of decisions too that influenced how they played. It was very fantastic.
So yeah, so I've done both kinds of games before, and so have you actually. I've played the same scenario multiple times. So there are a number of things I've written for Hydro Hackers that like my convention adventures for Hydro Hackers are pretty much the same, and I run them a new one each year, but I run them multiple times in a year, so I kind of see the same adventure played out multiple times. That's always fun. And then like we have both run many sessions of Turning Point, our game that will be coming out at some point when the world is better.
Yes.
And Turning Point is not almost never the same. Even if you play the dilemma, it's almost never the same because you have to make up so much stuff around the dilemma.
Right, and about the character specifically. Exactly. And that's really the thing is like you just really never have the same character making that decision. Right. So the scenes are never the same. I've never played it and had a scene feel the same as another scene that I've played before.
I totally agree. And what I think is interesting though, in both of those cases, is that when you play the same one shot, whether it's something very scripted and contained like a Hydro Hacker's adventure, or it's very much a sandbox, a structured sandbox like Ghosts in the Discord, like Turning Point, the more times you play it, the more you start to explore the play space around it. Right?
I mean,
so you actually start to you start to develop a feel for while the game isn't the same, the feel, if the game is designed properly, the feel will come out the same. So you start to get the same feels for it. And then you also find like the little nooks and like the cool little nooks and crannies. Like for Turning Point, one of the things that we discovered after many, many plays is the third scene. Right?
Yeah, the third scene is the one where people really get into it and they start pulling heartstrings and stuff.
The third
that's just what it is.
And there was nothing engineered about the third scene. It was really this kind of delightful observation that as we started playing it over and over and the more times you play a game like that, the more you kind of traverse that game surface, right? Like you start to understand like all the area that you're playing in, and very quickly. I don't want to say very quickly. After a number of plays, we started to discover this really interesting thing about scene 3, and that scene 3 tends to be this like really powerful scene.
It's usually pretty pivotal.
Yeah.
In terms of like how things are going to go, because you have now had, and I mean, this is just me positing a theory, right? The first scene is always trying to figure out who the character is because no one has played them yet. You've made a bunch of decisions and nobody's actually spoken as that person yet, right? So the first scene is always sort of trying to figure out who that person is. And then the second scene, you kind of settle into it. And then the third scene, everybody just hits their stride because you know who they are.
And I think by that point you've built up some background. You kind of see where the underlying arguments for this character are starting to line up, and somebody like turns heavy into that.
Yep. You can push harder because you understand.
Yeah. And so another one of those interesting things is not only do you discover those little nooks and crannies, but you learn also how to push on parts of it. So like I remember when you went last time at QCC, you had a very like non-traditional turning point episode.
It was great though. Yeah.
And it was very non-traditional, but it worked, right?
Absolutely, it did.
And I see you doing the same thing as you're playing Ghosts in the Discord, right? Is that these multiple plays are allowing you to test the surface, right? Like to move through the area of the game and kind of feel like what works. Like these parts are really good. Push on boundaries, like having your one player, I believe it was Brett, right, playing the devil, right?
He played like the demon from another dimension, and then Derek killed himself.
Yeah, so like
to make a deal with him to become the fire thing and released him from the lighthouse.
And those aren't in the rules, right? That's you skirting on the outside of the play space, but making it work because you kind of understand. Like I have a personal philosophy that I will always try to play a game correctly, like rules written, the first couple times, and then after that, I will start to shape the game. If needed, I will shape the game to the way I want it, right? So, because my first intention is always to experience what the designer intended, and then compare that to what I want. And then somehow, usually what I wind up running in the end is kind of what the designer intended, but also molded with what I want. Like, for instance, in my Forbidden Lands game, and sometimes this happens by not understanding rules and then just being comfortable with them.
Just deciding what you want.
Yeah, so in the Forbidden Lands game, when you take damage, you start to incur a cumulative -1 to all your dice rolls. But that's not super heroic, and this game is pretty hard to begin with. So early on in the game, we never used that rule. And after we played for a while, we discovered it, and somebody was like, "Oh yeah, that's the rule." And I'm like, "Yeah, we're totally not doing that."
Yeah.
Like, we're totally not doing that. This game, the game's hard enough. Like, you don't have like 100 hit points in this game. So losing the few points you have and incurring a negative penalty on your roll or on your die pool is like way too hard. So for the more heroic flavor game we're playing, I was just like, nope, forget it. We're just not going to use that rule. Like, I'm not fixing it. We're not going back. Like whatever, and move on. And that's we had played many sessions, so I was very comfortable with what feel I wanted out of the game, and was okay not playing it orthodox to the rules.
Yeah. I mean, so the interesting thing is, the first time that we played it, we did tack some things on immediately because it is a pretty loose rule set in terms of, like, if you really just played Ghosts the way that is written, you would say, we're going to a haunted house. Real quick, investigators, you've made some decisions. Real quick, Ghosts, you've made some decisions all individually on your own about why you're in this haunted house, and let's play, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, we immediately, and this is just the kind of group that I play with, this is what we like to get out of stories. So as I'm introducing the game, Wen, of course, is like, why don't we all go off and plan together? And I was like, yes, why don't we? So, like, even the first time we went and did that, but that isn't part of what was in the rules to begin with. But that in and of itself is just a little bit of a redirection because there's nothing about it not being in there, right?
No,
So this second time was really where we pushed it, because there's actually some details about very specifically that investigators can't injure, or Ghosts cannot injure investigators. But it gets really interesting because the investigator did that, like, he chose to do that. That was, he had the agency as a player, and he said yes and did the thing that he wanted to do, and did not have to in any way, shape, or form at all. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to make it sound like if you change the game the first time you play it, you've done something wrong. I mean, there is no wrong, bad fun.
No.
I do.
No. Pants party. No.
You know what? We can't even cut this stuff out. Like, that's a TikTok meme. If you're not on TikTok, you're not going to get that.
Oh, but remember, all the outtakes are hidden in the episode like Easter eggs.
Right. So, yeah, I think... for me, I'm just the kind of person who likes to play it once the way it's designed. But there are things when I'm initially reading a game where I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like this rule. Right? Like, I start reading and I'll be like, I don't know about that. I think I'm going to change that. Like, maybe I'll give it a try, like an honest try once or twice. And then I'll be like, cool, now I'm doing it, now I'm going to change it.
I mean, I am pretty consistent about being really on board for tacking on... anything that is relationship building if I don't feel like the game provides relationship building stuff. As I was saying at the beginning, it's like there are things that I like to get out of games that I then like do stuff to make sure that I get that out of the games. Right?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, that's where we get into like, my comment the first time that I played 10 Candles, which was an amazing game. But like my comment about what made it even better for me is that actually Brett and I had decided he was my son.
Right.
And I was his aging mother. And having that like very personal, direct relationship in that really high pressure situation made the game like, I mean, I could see how it was a very good game to begin with, but like no one else had that relationship. And so we didn't actually really attach to them. And like the ends of their stories were less impactful to me than the end of my story and my son's story. Right.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because they were connected together. When we went back and listened to the messages we left were for each other and they were like heartbreaking.
I'm going to drift. I'm going to drift into my topic, which is
You should drift into your topic.
Which is very similar to yours, because I was a couple of weeks ago finishing up my Dungeon Crawl Classics first level adventure, the one who watches from below, and the end of the game is not super full of detail. Like, you get to the last encounter and there's like a bunch of detail about what happens. I don't want to spoil it in case anybody winds up playing it. There's like a bunch of information about what happens when you wake the big bad. And then it just is like ends. Like it's just like, well, some stuff should happen, blah blah blah, conclusion of adventure. And
like,
well, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, sure. A couple things. Like, one, I probably could, if I was a focus on a map kind of person, I could probably have done it full tactical square by square. I don't want to give anything away, but there's some running away that happens. It is first level DCC. Like, one should know when you're outgunned in the universe.
Yes.
So I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm looking at it like this is going to wind up being a chase. And there's nothing in the adventure about if this is going to be a chase, this is what happens. Like, literally just is like, and they can run away. And there's some monsters and other stuff. So I spent a little time before the adventure and I was like, okay, this is not in the adventure, but I'm going to write some stuff down about how this chase should work. Like,
yes.
I'm going to come up with my own little set of rules for this chase, and I'll just use them to run this chase to make it more exciting. Rather than just, focus on a map square by square kind of thing. Doing ranges and, the dwarf can only move this far, the elf moves this far, this person's encumbered, blah, 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 blah. Totally,
been there, done that.
Totally not talking about game experiences you like, right? Focus on a map is not a style I like to play, and it's, nor is it one that DCC requires.
Right.
So I quickly whipped up some chase rules. The game is a D20 game. So I, using the parts that I had laying around, I kind of whipped up some chase rules for it. and brought it all to the table and played it, and it came out fabulous. It went a little unexpected in that the creatures that were chasing everybody, I rolled stupid high for. So they basically caught the party twice, but it was actually worse for the creatures because the idea that I wanted these things to kind of chase them through the dungeon, taking pot shots at them like as this rolling fight.
Right.
And instead, because it caught up to all of them, they all attacked
They all turned and attacked it.
And like in the first round, they did a lot of damage. And I was like, whoa. So then I'm like, okay, well, roll for the second chase. And I rolled even higher. And I was like, oh, man. I'm like,
oh, boy,
well, they caught him. Like, they caught him again. And the players were like, here is where we make our stand, right? And they were just
because it keeps catching us.
Yes. So it didn't go the way I expected, but it went well. Like the players enjoyed it and they had a good time. And it was a case where the game just didn't have the thing I needed. So I just put the thing I needed together to make the experience that I wanted. Right. And I think that's been our theme all. I think it's been our theme all through the through this half of the show is that what we've been talking about is bending play to the way we like games to go.
Yeah. Because I want relationships and you needed a chase to work well.
Yeah. And in both cases, the games didn't necessarily lend them to them, but they also didn't prevent it. So
yes, that definitely is. Yeah,
right.
There's nothing about ghosts that would prevent you from doing what we're doing.
Right. So if we talk about like really quickly, if we talk abstractly about like game spaces, right? In both cases, the game space does not purposely limit the thing that we were looking for. It just doesn't have it. Right. So there's a difference between not having it and limiting or blocking that from a game. Right.
Yes.
So in that case, in that empty space, that gap between what I've got and what I need, if you have a decent framework of rules, you can bridge those two things. Right. So what I wound up using was, for that chase was I had everyone make reflex checks. And I was like, whoever, like, the monsters make a reflex check. Whoever gets above the monster's reflex check gets away this turn, and whoever gets below the monster's reflex check, the monsters catch up to, and we'll have one round. Like, you can attack, they can attack, kind of thing. Yep. And I was just going to do that for, I had 10, like I was like, it'll take 10 turns to traverse the entire, like the 4 floors of the dungeon in this like, you know, cinematographic rolling fight.
Yes.
So it's those empty spaces where we actually can build out the game to get to the spaces we want, provided the game has enough understandable structure for us to kind of cannibalize parts and jury rig something together to get, to close. Or just
one of those easy things where you can, like, because in my case, what it is like, here's how we just do planning, like world building stuff, and just pop it on the beginning, right? I mean, which is straight up is something that I both think of as like a quick session 0 style thing that happens at my table, but also something that happens that we do kind of like going into like the LARP stuff that we do, right?
Sure.
Oh, well, so I'm going to talk about, can I talk about one other gaming thing that's giving me like...
Okay.
It's not actually related, but it's related to world building stuff. And we don't actually have a system, but one of the things that my game group is doing, because we only meet every other week, and we wanted to do some like ongoing stuff, but play by post kind of was tricky for us because we all have different time requirements in our lives and all of this stuff, right? We're going to write each other actual letters.
Yeah, you're like
in the mail letters. And this way we can also support our post office.
Yeah, there you go. I love it.
Look at
like
us.
A little activism plus
yes, plus gaming.
Plus gaming.
And and we decided that we are all playing. This is apropos really of nothing except that I'm really excited about it and excited to start it. We're all playing different kinds of monsters. Or like supernatural creatures. So we have like a mummy who's looking for his jars of stuff, guts. What are those called? The jars that they put. No.
Oh, no.
And
that's liches.
We've got the creature from the Black Lagoon. There is only one. None of the other ones are actually the creature from the Black Lagoon. And he ate a Karen, and now unfortunately has to run the HOA for his housing development because she was in charge of the HOA.
That's funny.
It's really funny. And like a number of other things. We have one of Frankenstein's monsters, and she's fantastic, and she makes stitched together dolls, like Monster High dolls. And I'm a cat. I'm a cat who's a witch. I'm on my 5th life, and I have a human familiar who does all of my opposable thumbs tasks for me. Yeah, we got great stuff. Anyway, I'm really excited about this game. This is one of those things where it's just like, we don't have any rules and we don't care. And we got together and we did a session 0. This is how it tied in, right? So we got together, did a session 0, introduced characters, decided the reason we're writing letters to each other is because we're pen pals, because MonCon this year got canceled because of the pandemic.
Sure.
So, yeah. Anyway, so basically what I wanted to say is go forth and don't feel like you have to have any rules to go make a game that does a thing that you want it to do right now, because not everything needs to have a lot of rules. If you want to write a bunch of letters with your friends and be silly and have an ongoing potential plot, like, for example, I just introduced magic-eating scarabs. A plague of magic-eating scarabs is the next thing that is happening in that game that we're going to be writing letters about. So, like, go out there and have fun and be wild and, heck, send letters, because then it goes through the post office.
Yeah. That's cool stuff.
See, it wasn't actually related to anything except I'm really excited about it.
I mean, you just gave away your stuff to talk about for a future episode, but sure.
But I haven't actually written the letter yet.
Oh, so we'll find out how it goes.
Right. I have nothing. Like, all we've done is the session 0.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. It was brilliant. Andy is playing the goddess of minor inconveniences, which is like, it's so good.
All right, then. We should.
Sorry. We should talk about our other stuff.
We should talk about our other stuff for a little bit, about the other thing that's giving us life. We both had the same thing because I copied you this week, which isn't cooking, which is also a thing I sometimes copy you on.
It's true.
But this week it was about getting together with humans.
Yeah, real, live, actual humans.
Right. So
yeah. I mean, so for me, this started because Wen was not quite in town, but a lot closer to in town than he normally is these days, and we all wanted to see him, but also like pandemic, right?
Sure.
So we all got together in my backyard with masks, and we hung out in our little clumps of like people who live together 6 to 10 feet away from each other, outside on a windy day. So I felt pretty good about it. But I got to see a bunch of live, real humans, my people in the flesh.
Yeah.
Real people.
I mean, that was the first time.
So good.
When was the last time you saw your game group? March?
How many weeks has it been? Sometime like the very beginning of March.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been a while.
I was pretty much in the same boat. In fact, mine was... Oh, it had been like the 6th of March because I didn't have a game on the night before lockdown.
Yes.
The night before lockdown, Tony wasn't feeling good, so we had canceled our game. So it was the week before that. And I locked down, I think, on the 14th, 15th, 16th, something like that. Monday, whatever that Monday was, the 15th or 16th. So the week before that.
It might have been the end of February. It was either like the 6th for me too, or it was the end of February.
So inspired by you having your get-together, I also arranged a get-together and reached out to my 2 co-hosts Actually, my 3 co-hosts for the Misdirected Mark, Jerry, Bob, and Chris. Chris's partner, Jen, and Glenn, our buddy Glenn, who is in many of our games. And we actually went out to a park because it was gorgeous. It was like 68 degrees and sunny. And we all brought chairs. We all brought masks. We sat outside. We spaced ourselves apart. And other than eating our lunches, which we did without masks on, we sat for the rest of the time chatting with each other with our masks on and just being in each other's company, which was both familiar and surreal kind of simultaneously.
Yeah.
And I say that because I see my gaming groups a lot more than you see yours. Like I see them. I see Jerry and Bob twice a week, right? I see them for recording Misdirected Mark. And then I'm in Chris's game with Jerry on one Thursday. And then on the other Thursday, Bob, Jerry, and Chris are in my DCC game. And then on the weekends, I always see Bob. I then either see Glenn or Jerry, right? Like I see them a lot. So on one hand, during this whole thing, I never felt isolated, right? Like I'm on Mumble every night with our Misdirected Mark peeps, and then I'm on various Zoom games through the week, and that's like really good. But it was the first time I'd seen any of them in person.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't a screen in some time, and that was different. But
so the thing that was actually really hard for me is that I'm a hugger and I'm a hostess.
Oh yeah,
you come over to my house, then I'm like, can I get you some water? You know, blah blah blah. Do you want something to drink? Whatever. Like I'll feed you. Like all of those things. And I usually hug everybody when they, like, my game group, like, you came over, I'm giving you hugs. You're leaving, I'm giving you hugs. And so, like, maintaining the 6 to 8 feet, while it was fine and we all did it, like, I was just like, so, like, I kept hugging Andy.
Yep.
Like, hey, somebody's here. I'm going to give Andy a hug. 'Cause we're quarantined together. Like, you know, she's in my bubble.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have given out hugs. We were all very good. Like, everyone was very responsible. Being, like, you know, we did it the same way you did. We did it the safest way possible, which was outside, so high airflow. Masks on because we were talking for a long period of time. And we were together for, like, an hour. And then we like parted ways. And I might have stayed longer if a number of us hadn't started getting sunburn.
Yeah, I was going to say, y'all started sunburning, which was for me, the plus was we were in my backyard and I have a couple of nice trees and like a covering over my porch. So we had like some shaded areas to be in.
Right.
So we were okay.
I am actually quite pink right now. I am half Scottish and does not take much sunlight to set me off. Now, here's the thing, though. I'm half Scottish, but I'm also half Italian. So this initial burn will create the foundation by which I won't burn again for the rest of the summer. But it's almost required. Like the first one is always the painful one, and then it'll be fine.
This is the one that I did when I mowed the lawn.
Yes.
Remember when I mowed the lawn? And I, of course, wore a shirt that did not have a strap pattern that matches anything else that I wear. And there were several days of like, oh, God, clawing through my closet. What can I put on that does not rub this all over the place? So that was fun. But yes, so now we have both achieved our first sunburns of the year.
And our first human contact. Which was really nice. And like... It's funny because I talk to these people all the time, so sitting there talking to them felt totally normal. But then at one point it was like, hey, we're all sitting here, like, talking to each other. Like that's cool. Like, because... It's
different. There's no screen delay. There's no weird glitchy business. There's no... I mean, Zoom has been pretty good to us.
Oh, I'm very pleased with Zoom performance.
Right. But like there's still weird things just about like headphones, screens, like all of that stuff where it's just like it's different to talk to someone in person.
It was different to talk to someone in person, and unlike I think it was a little different for you than it was for us, but a lot of March, April, and May was pretty miserable here. Like it was cold, it was overcast, it was wet. So actually being out in actual like nice weather, like just under 70 but sunny and warm with like a light breeze, like it was nice to just be outside and for, a second or two not think like, well, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but then you kind of look over and everyone's wearing masks talking to you and you're like, yeah, right, pandemic, right? Like,
right.
That's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's been nice here for a while. I go take walks and stuff, right? Like I've been doing
that hasn't been the case for a while. So, yeah, it was good. It was good. We're definitely doing it again. We all said like we'll definitely do it again.
Yeah, we all said we're definitely doing it again too. Although Wen is driving back across the country this week, so he won't be there again. But he has initiated a thing that we're all like, we got to do this like at least once a month.
Yeah,
like we should all just get together.
It's really good. Okay,
we can't hold any babies though.
Okay, Karen.
You say that, but Brett has a tiny baby. We all want to say hello to her, but we can't.
Brett didn't bring the baby.
No, he didn't.
Okay, just to be clear, I was like, Brett didn't bring the baby to the gathering.
No.
Okay.
No, he brought beer.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that sounds right. All right. So, with that, we should probably get ready to pack up the show. We normally do that by talking about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network. Do you got one?
I can make one up.
Take it away.
Yeah. On the Misdirected Mark Network, you can listen to a made-up show about people writing letters. Nope, I'm going to come up with a real show. On the Lounge, you can hear Doc Palindrome interviewing awesome personalities in gaming and talking about all sorts of cool things. So you should totally listen to him.
Doc's cool. Doc's cool peeps.
He's cool peeps. And also, you might catch Margaret hanging out in the lounge with her peanut butter and onion sandwiches.
There you go. All righty. Say, Senda, where do people find us on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games. You can find us on the forums. I had to think about that. It's only been a week since I lost it. Okay. You can find us in the Misdirected Mark forums, which is forums.misdirectedmark.com, or you can email us, panda@misdirectedmark.com. And Phil, once they find us in one of those places, what can they do with that information?
So you should send us topics. Eventually the Chit Chat will stop and we'll get back to doing the shows that we normally do. But in the meantime, queue up those questions, topics, ideas for us to talk about. Normally when we do a show, we talk about a topic from two different vantage points. Sometimes campaigns and one shots, sometimes GMs and players. Depends on what the topic provides in terms of speaking ideas. But please send us some. To be honest, our stockpile is getting stale. We've had a bunch for like 4 years of the show. I think I'm going to declare bankruptcy as we come out of.
You've said this before. We got a bunch of new ones that we literally haven't even touched.
No, those are great. So those should just keep coming in. Those should keep coming in.
Us new ones.
But I think I'm just going to take all the old ones because I know which ones are the old ones, and I'm just gonna throw them out, get them off the shelf, and we'll take all the new ones and start running with that. So anyway, send us topics because we really work hard. Not to do the show on topics that we like, but rather on topics that you find interesting because we like to pander to our pandas like to pander to our audience.
Pandas like to pander.
Yeah. If
we're pandering.
Yes. And if you like what we do here elsewhere on the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaign. You can go to patreon.com/MMP. Patrons get access to our awesome Slack room for life. They can come hang out with us on the Mind. They can come out if you're interested in Minecraft. Come join us on Slack and then jump into our Minecraft room, and we'll get you on our server. You can take part in our Star Trek Next Generation Watch Club.
Yes.
You actually can do that if you're not a patron. You don't have to be a patron for that one. That one you just go to the forums.
Just join the forums.
Yep, that one's a freebie if you want to do that. Today, patrons got a D&D monster from the Mad Wizard Merwin.
Heck yeah, they did.
That went out.
It's a creepy one too.
Yeah. And we occasionally send stuff out when we're not in lockdown. We like to do stuff for our patrons. We have a couple things in the hopper that, as we start to recover, might make it to the surface. But anyway, your patronage is what makes this network possible, and we greatly appreciate it. It helps us with everything from hosting costs to equipment to hosts, all of that stuff. Your support is just what makes all of this very doable. So thank you. Thank you very much.
So I will say, and this will be probably Rob might be like, Senda, why did you say that? But so this month we are donating the network portion of our Patreon monies to various charities. And we will be making some declarations about that so that you guys know where everything went. If you care to, thank you so much for supporting us. This is a time in which we are going to support some other people who need those funds a little bit more urgently than we do before we go back to normal next month.
Yeah, that's also fantastic. We also like to shout out to our patrons, but instead of just randomly trying to grab 3 names out of the air, we're just going to shout our love to all of our patrons tonight. We love you all. We appreciate you all, and thank you all for your patronage.
Yeah.
Now,
super duper appreciate all of you.
Despite the fact that we are in lockdown, I am still actively working on our marketing campaign. If you hear us, you will love us. And it is working. It is working. Check the internet. It is definitely working. And there's a way that people who are already listening to us can help us get other people to listen to us. I mean, first of all, you could just go tell your friends. Like, really, if you just told your friends to go listen to us, that would be a big help. There's another thing you can also do on Apple Podcasts that also will help people that you don't actually know help find us. What's that thing?
See, you already said most of it this time, so you can leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or the podcatcher of your choice, because pretty much all of them do reviews, and all of the algorithms for searching and making us come up in search results are affected by how many reviews a podcast gets. So it really does actually help new people find the show, which is super duper great, and we super duper appreciate it. And thank you so very, very much to everyone who has already left a review. We really, really, really do appreciate it a lot, especially as everybody is kind of living low on spoons and all of that kind of stuff. So thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time and energy.
Say, Senda, what game are you going to play for your gaming group this coming week?
Yeah, we haven't decided yet because we were going to do our session 0 for Cartel, but we're going to be down for This show is a joint production of She's a Super Geek and Misdirected Mark Productions, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh?